This creature was described as humanoid, but not quite right. It had almost grey skin, 2 long limbs, and it was often seen crawling or moving in a really distorted, jerky way, and commonly seen hunched over, peering into people's windows.
Oh, my word. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Drip Podcast. It's me and Scott. We've got some cryptids for you today. Drip Podcast, where we discuss paranormal, conspiracy, true crime. Today, it's the mythical. It's the cryptid. Are you doing... So, Scott tend to lead these, don't you? And you tend to choose an area. What is today's area?
So far we have done Southwest and Northwest.
Yeah.
Today we are looking at the region of London.
Oh!
I thought we'd go a bit central, go for the capital.
Nice, okay. Cryptids of London.
It's one of those things that you don't tend to think of London as, because it's such like a densely populated kind of city.
Where
you
is
don't think
there
of it as
room
having...
for Bigfoot?
Yeah. There is no Bigfoot, very disappointingly. I did look for a Bigfoot of London, but there's a few kind of lesser ones that I couldn't find enough notes on to actually make a bit out of, but I will mention a couple as we go.
Okay.
But I've got a few that I've actually got some information about.
Cool.
And that's starting us off with the werewolf of Camberwell.
Right, okay. Is Camberwell a borough?
No. So Camberwell is a kind of area within the borough of Southwark.
Right, okay.
Southwark? Yes, I'm going with Southwark.
How's it spelled?
Southwark.
Yeah. Southwark.
Camberwell, it has an old cemetery within its kind of area boundary. And over the years, this has been home to what the person who talks about this has described as 2 very similar sightings of werewolves.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I love a werewolf, I won't lie to you.
I will dispute the similar sightings part, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So the first one was on October the 9th, 1996, when a man was walking through the area to go visit his friend and decided he would take a shortcut through the old cemetery of Camberwell. Suddenly and out of nowhere, something grabbed the man by the arm and threw him into the ground.
Okay.
Which, from what I could tell, this was daytime.
Right.
Which, yeah, that would be concerning.
Not a very common werewolf hour.
No, it tends to be full moon werewolves, not...
They're evolving. This is not good.
Midday in South London.
Yeah.
When he looked up, he saw a large creature with dark fur and a head like a German shepherd.
Okay. That's werewolf-esque.
Yeah. This creature was looking at him intently, growling at him and sniffing his body up and down.
Is he sure it wasn't a German shepherd?
Well, you'd think so, but just as quickly as the encounter began, the beast rose to its hind legs and sprinted away at full sprint.
Right, okay.
And just ran off.
Not someone in a costume.
He seems to be implying that, because it was quite up close, he got a very good look and it was like an actual dog head.
Okay, fucking hell. I mean, that's pretty intense.
But obviously, up until it sprints off on its hind legs, my brain also went, that was a dog.
Yeah.
You've oversimplified this. There was no werewolf. But the sprinting on its hind legs kind of made me go, okay, that is actually a bit weird.
So, middle of the day, he's walking through a cemetery.
Mm-hmm. Taking a shortcut to get to his friend's house.
And he gets pulled to the ground.
Yeah, and then he looks over to see what's pulled him to the ground.
Well, it's a wolf.
It's a German shepherd.
Hybrid.
Yeah.
Did he say if it had paws or was it hands?
He did not. Because I do really know how it grabbed him. It's a valid point.
Yeah.
That dog doesn't have opposable thumbs.
But that shouldn't be able to run off on his hind legs either.
Well, true, yeah. I'm picking up the wrong bits of biology here.
So my biggest issue with this whole thing, sorry to interrupt, is the fact that there is no moon.
Well, yeah. I mean,
let's not fuck with the law.
Sometimes you see the moon during the day, to be fair.
True.
Could have been one of those.
Yeah, daytime werewolf.
It doesn't specify. Yeah,
that's when you know you're fucked.
Yeah. The man speculates that the reason he was spared by this creature,
Yeah.
keep in mind this creature's never killed anyone as far as we're aware. No one's ever been reported to have been mauled to death in this cemetery.
Right, yeah.
But the reason he thinks he was spared is because he suffers from a disease that dogs are well known to be able to smell.
Right.
It doesn't say what the disease is. That's the entire speculation.
He was spared because essentially this werewolf smelt his disease and felt sorry for him. Or just didn't want some of that meat.
But yeah, I mean...
So that's a bit like, isn't it the World War Z zombies? They don't attack, like, disease.
Yeah.
So he came up against a German Shepherd werewolf World War Z zombie hybrid and was spared because, I mean, we didn't even know what disease he's got.
No, it didn't say.
I won't speculate on that.
I did look at a list of diseases dogs can smell, and a lot of them were questionable at best.
Okay, interesting.
But it's one of those things of, would a werewolf not rip you, at least rip you to pieces, even if not eat you?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of the MO. The MO of a...
Yeah. That was one of the sightings of this werewolf.
Okay. And sorry, you said that they're similar sightings. So presumably you're now going to tell me it was in a graveyard and you got pulled over by a German Shepherd hybrid.
So Andy McGrath, the cryptozoologist from the area who's fascinated with werewolves, and specifically the werewolf of Camberwell, says that these two matching accounts make it very difficult for him to ignore the possibility that the werewolf of Camberwell does or did at one point exist.
Okay.
So the second sighting, we jump forward 9 years.
Right.
So the first one was in 96, so 2005.
Okay.
Two pedestrians are walking together on a summer's night. At least this one's at night.
Okay, good.
And they begin to hear a low growl. I should say they are walking in the direction of the same cemetery.
Okay. Okay.
So they're heading towards the same location.
We have some consistency.
Then, after they hear this low growl, a tree in the corner of the cemetery began to shake.
Okay.
Incredibly
Potentially
hard.
Something heavy in this tree.
As though something powerful was shaking it. Is what they said.
Fucking knew it.
When they then investigated the tree after the shaking had stopped, they found that its base was ripped to pieces. Like,
Jesus. Okay.
They didn't say claw marks, they just said that it was in tatters. They didn't give an exact description of it. And that the roots of the tree looked as if they were ready to be ripped out of the ground.
Okay.
In fear, the two friends both ran in opposite directions and didn't speak to each other for a while afterwards.
Well, listen, right? The thing is, and this is a little bit of a survival tip for anyone out there who encounters a werewolf. If you encounter a werewolf and you're with someone else, you've only got to outrun them. You know? I mean, if you split up, you go in separate directions, you got a 50-50 on what way that werewolf's going, yeah? But if you're not that fond of the person that you are currently walking with, or even better, if it's a stranger, simply run in the same direction. A simple kick to the knee should suffice, and then you're away. And you will survive.
Safety.
And the person you were with will be torn to shreds. Now, the other issue is, it depends on what sort of werewolf we're dealing with here. Because if it's one of those, infectious motherfuckers, the person you just betrayed to death could then become a werewolf. And I would imagine if it has any sentience whatsoever when becoming a werewolf and remembers you, you will be fucked. But that's a risk you've got to take,
But you've got to hope in the time it took it to change that you can get far enough away. You're in London, so get on the underground.
Or, but what if, right, you kick someone, bosh, or you trip them up, and then the fucking werewolves going at them, and then you think they're dead, and then, like, the next morning, that person just, like, wakes up, and it's like, oh, my God, what happened there? So, I'm all cut up and shit. Jesus, I remember that guy tripped me up, and I got attacked by a werewolf. And then the next full moon turns into a werewolf, instantly thinks of you, comes and hunts you down.
That is true.
That's scary.
That isn't ideal.
but it beats being torn apart by a werewolf in the first instance.
True. You may be delaying it, but at least you've got longer to, live on.
Exactly. What is the distance between, or the time between full moons? Is it a month?
I think so.
There you go. You get another month at life. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Move to a different country. Werewolves can't get on planes.
There you go. See?
I mean, they might be able to in human form, but
it's a minor details. You don't need to.
That is a podcast waiting to happen. Survival tips for different cryptids and things.
Definitely.
So that's the werewolf of Camberwell. That's the second identical sighting.
So the identical sighting was just that a tree shook.
Yeah.
They didn't actually see anything.
No.
Was it windy?
Well, to me, they heard the low growl beforehand.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For me, that could just have been someone with like a hedge trimmer.
True.
Cutting the bushes or the hedges around in the cemetery.
That's a stretch, that one.
But apparently these...
It's a stretch.
The Andy McGrath, the cryptozoologist guy, said that if it was just one of the two things, he wouldn't have believed that this was real. He would have thought it was just a one-off.
Right.
But because there were two very similar matching accounts...
Matching, though.
It's difficult for him to ignore.
Matching is a fucking... You've got to do some heavy lifting in your mind for that to match. But hey, Andy, if you're out there, God bless.
If he wants to come on the pod.
If you want to come on the pod, mate, you can tell us all about the werewolves, judgment-free. We'll have a nice chat. Get in touch, Andy. Come on, it makes sense.
So he did say that the majority of werewolf or werewolf and similar sightings are normally just wild animals.
Yeah,
that we have actually, not undiscovered animals, but things that we know what they are that are misidentified.
Yeah.
So in this case, for example, a German Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe it was a German Shepherd that was trying to maul someone, and the owner picked it up and ran off carrying it.
Maybe.
And in his panic state, he saw a dog, then he saw legs.
Yeah, that's entirely. Do you know what? That is a fucking great potential reasoning behind that.
Just didn't want their dog put down, so they just did a runner.
Yeah, they just fucking legged it.
And all he saw as he was getting back to his feet was the dog's head bobbing over the bushes as someone sprinted off.
Yeah, there we go. We cracked it.
I mean, that is also a possibility, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. Next up we have, and we might have talked about this cryptid before. I've definitely spoken about it before, but I don't remember if it was on the pod.
Okay.
Is the Highgate vampire.
Okay, doesn't ring a bell immediately.
The Highgate vampire starts with some eerie sightings in Highgate Cemetery in London. It's always the cemeteries, it seems.
Yeah.
So in the late 1960s, witnesses in the area claim to have seen a tall, dark, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes that's often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature and an overwhelming sense of dread and a feeling of paralysis.
Okay. Got many things going on there.
Yeah. So people just walking by at night would look into the cemetery.
Fuck that.
People that live nearby would look out their windows and they just see kind of a shadowy figure moving around.
Yeah, that's awful.
And obviously its glowing red eyes would be something that they would see out the window and draw them in.
Oh, man.
It's not great.
No. I wonder if the vampires are in the cemeteries as well as the werewolves. I mean, we all know, historically, there is a vampire lichen war going for centuries. Let us know down below. Are you team... What are the teams?
Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Yes, Team Edward or Team Jacob. What are you, Scott?
I am Team Edward.
Okay, interesting. I've never really watched them properly to pick a team.
I've read the books.
I would probably be on the side of the werewolves until I found out that Jacob falls in love with a baby or some shit. Was that puts a stamp on the baby or something?
Something to Nessie.
Yeah, a bit dodgy that. Anyway, listen, if werewolves are out there, I'm not calling you all nonsense, right? Don't come for me and fucking slash my throat. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting that the staging ground here is cemeteries because, as we know, the vampiric lichen war rages on and will never end until one of them is no more.
Yeah. On a side note, which would you rather be?
I would rather be a vampire. I could get down with being nocturnal. That's fine. And I think the immortality, because that's what I love about vampires in certain literature and stuff, where they become like aristocracy because they're immortal. They have so many years to just like rise up. And yeah, like I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a
like what you can achieve in like an 80-year lifespan. What could you achieve in 1,000 years? You know, it's pretty cool.
I think the thing is, right, if I'm a werewolf, I've got less control over generally what's good. Like, it doesn't benefit me in a day-to-day.
No, you just went as a full
setting,
moon, you lose complete control, and you tear all your clothes and skin off and go and massacre people. At least with like being a vampire, you know, you can get sexy with it. You know, vampires are
it depends
sexy.
it depends on which version we're going for with vampires, but they tend to have some sort of like mind control power normally.
Yeah, a bit of like Lestat in Interview with the Vampire, get sexy with it.
Turn into a bat. All the fun stuff.
Turn into mist.
Don't like blood though, so that would be a that'd be a bit of an inconvenience.
But definitely vampire over. Let us know in the comments though, vampire or werewolf, Team Jacob or Team Edward. 2 separate questions, by the way. You can be Team Jacob but still want to be a vampire, right? Don't let anyone tell you different. But yeah, vampires are cool.
Yeah. So after these people have seen this mysterious dark figure roaming around the cemetery, kind of minding its own business, not doing a lot.
Hello there.
Other people would find dead animals in the cemetery, often with their blood drained and laid out kind of on gravestones and in ritualistic fashion,
Jesus.
just kind of around the cemetery.
That's pretty bad.
One woman claims that she was attacked by the creature.
Oh.
Which apparently... It says she was attacked by the creature, at which point she became paralysed and was unable to move as the creature then approached her. And as it approached her, it vanished.
The fuck?
So, in my head...
Did it paralyse her, or was she paralysed
She was paralysed with fear.
Right.
By the same thing it said before, the presence of paralysis that it kind of exudes. Where if you see it, you kind of just can't move. I don't know if it's directly because you're just scared of whatever it is, or if that's actually something it does to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people talk about the feeling of paralysis that it gives off.
That's cool.
The story expands a bit further into the 1970s when 2 rival paranormal investigators, David Farron and Sean Manchester, took their theories public.
Okay.
Farron suggested that the figure was a malevolent spirit, not a vampire, but more of a negative entity, possibly even something demonic.
Yeah, see, that's the vibe I got with like didn't you say like the temperature gets reduced, the feeling of dread, all shadowy figure. That's what I was thinking, more spirit or demonic.
Whereas Manchester claims that the creature was a literal vampire, and even went as far as to say that it was possibly a 15th century Romanian nobleman that was brought to England and reawakened by a secret occult cult, and that was what caused all the dead animals to be around, and they were actually bringing it back to life and constantly trying to revive it.
Yeah. Oh, my lightsaber just died. That scared the shit out of me.
I saw something move behind you at the corner of my eye and was like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Okay. I love the idea that, say, take vampires, for example, that they do actually exist. And yes, there's been films and stuff made, but like everything is based in fact at some point, or ideas, And yeah, I just love the idea that the vampires are actually out there. That would be
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I quite like so in my head, the idea of the way they're trying to use the kind of ritualistic summoning of the real vampire
Mm.
would be to me that they're, using the blood and that. In Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and the Goblet of Fire, when they're reviving Voldemort,
Yeah.
and he's kind of a
Oh, he's got to cut his hand off. Or
he's like a crippled baby at the beginning, kind of a crippled, yeah, and that they used blood of a blood sacrifice, etc., to revive him.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm picturing here, in the sense that people are gathering in a graveyard at night to bring back a shriveled corpse they've brought over from Romania and to revive it back to being their kind of grand master vampire.
Yeah, it's like the story of Dracula with the solicitor. He's all disheveled and all old and like a just fucking old, and he like drains the energy, the life essence, doesn't he, over time to like become young again and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I like that as a concept.
Yeah.
So the feud between these two paranormal investigators played out quite dramatically in the press.
Jesus.
With both men being on a mission to destroy the alleged creature.
Okay.
Manchester stated publicly that he planned to exorcise and stake the vampire.
Nice.
And in the March of 1970, not long after conducting a TV interview talking about his plan, a crowd of curious Londoners stormed the cemetery at night in a chaotic midnight vampire hunt.
Wow.
So they had to break and enter because the cemetery was obviously locked and shut at night. And despite the frenzy of multiple, 10 plus people storming the place, and several arrests for trespassing and grave desecration,
Jesus,
no vampire was ever found. They did not discover the entity.
It was a we'll get him next time.
Yeah. So it is said that to this day, there's still a strange, watchful, and dark presence within the cemetery. And that some investigators that go to the cemetery during the day just to visit, and at night, as well as people that live nearby looking into the cemetery, still report seeing shadowy figures fluttering around between the gravestones. Okay. There's still also a number of animal deaths in the thing, some still being drained, as well as a lot of occult paraphernalia found at the location, such as candles and chalk symbols that every now and again they'll have to clean off of gravestones and things that people have gone in and drawn.
Yeah, maybe there's like a group of Satanists or something nearby.
Yeah, that is put down to modern occult dabbling instead of real vampiric activity. But it could be that, the same secret society that once tried to revive it or tried to revive this vampire before are back trying again.
Maybe.
Could be a real life vampire revival.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. That is the Highgate vampire. What are your...
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild. That's fucking awesome. Many layers to it.
Yeah,
I like the two paranormal investigators duking it out to... But did they ever team up? Because, okay, one of you think it's a demon, another one thinks it's a vampire. But if your goal is to destroy it, just team up and,
You would think two heads are better than one, and that two vampire experts would be...
Yeah, but
as far as I can tell, they didn't, and one of them kind of went silent. That wasn't the 70s, though, so they might still be about.
Okay, interesting.
Part two.
Oh, cool.
So the third and final one that I've got kind of information on, there's a few again that I'll talk about that are very faint, or very condensed.
Yeah.
The third one's more of an urban legend. It's a very common urban legend that you will probably have heard of, that is more often associated with New York City.
New York City.
London, too, though, is said to be home to a number of sewer alligators and sewer crocodiles.
London?
Mm-hmm.
The fuck? From a zoo?
So, obviously, the famous kind of urban legend for New York is people buy baby crocodiles and alligators as pets.
Yeah.
They start growing. They get a bit bigger. They get out of control. They bite someone. They need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the obviously logical thing to do is flush them down the toilet normally.
Naturally.
is what people seem to do with these urban legends. It then goes into the sewers, where it then grows up, feeding on kind of rats and things in the sewers.
Yeah.
At which point it becomes a full-sized alligator or crocodile and is just kind of about.
Yeah, just mooching around.
Yeah. London in the 1930s, apparently there were a number of headlines in newspapers, a number of sightings around the city, and generally quite a few kind of crocodile and alligator-like creatures were seen.
I mean,
about.
So the thing with, I don't know if this makes any sense whatsoever. If you said to me now, last week, someone reported seeing a crocodile or whatever, I would be like, that's for attention, that's for clout, whatever. There's something like the 1930s. I guess maybe you could sell stories and stuff, but what's the fucking benefit? Why would you make that up?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the other thing that I kind of... Now, and I'm not a sewage expert.
You might be.
But in my head now, kind of sewage pipes and that kind of thing are all quite modern.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 1930s, I think it's plausible there was still, or were still big underground sewage kind of outlets and ducts and...
Some more access is what you're saying.
Yeah, whereas now I'm thinking it's a lot more kind of PVC plumbing and...
Closed off.
I guess plumbing is the word I'm looking for, actually.
Yeah. It's more plumbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I see that.
But so yeah, that's that one essentially, is that there was sightings in the 1930s of crocodiles around London.
Wow. I mean, it's entirely plausible that... No, sorry, I don't think it's very plausible that they would still be there.
No.
So long ago, they would have to, have a full, reproductive ecosystem down there. Because that's the only thing, okay, people discarding alligators. And I know, I don't know how long alligators and crocodiles can live for. But I know, obviously, sorry, I just burped. I know, obviously, you only need one. But in order for it to, continue, you need a few down there that would find each other and mate, etc., etc. But I think, what can they live to, 70?
75 years for saltwater crocs.
Okay.
And alligators is about 60.
Cool, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you do only really need one down there that has enough to eat. And, I mean, if you imagine looking down a fucking storm drain and just seeing an alligator walk through, that would be fucking terrifying. That is the stuff of nightmares. Fortunately, all the fucking pipes and U-bends and stuff on toilets, you're never going to have one, poke his head out your toilet. But
which is always the concern. That is one of those weird, deep-rooted fears that I think people have.
Yeah,
it's normally snakes. Yeah,
yeah,
snakes coming out your toilet just
doesn't
sound like a good time.
Very, very creepy. But yeah, no, that's cool though. I would love it if that was the case.
Yeah,
if that was true.
See, I would still say in that sort of instance, I think northern cities might have more of a chance of that being a thing.
Why so?
I just think there are a lot of, up north, Manchester and that kind of way. You tend to hear there are a lot more kind of old city. It's kind of the more original,
updated infrastructure.
Yeah, less modernised.
Yeah.
Even places like bits of Norwich are still very...
Yeah, tax money doesn't go very far outside of London.
Yeah. A lot of it's kind of still quite, ancient houses and very old structures. And
I mean,
things
you've got
like
all the fucking tunnels under Norwich still. Yeah. They're all there. So that
could be alligators.
Could be. Could fucking be. That'd be scary. Just before we continue, Scott, I've just clocked. You've got a tailor-made hat on like me.
I do.
Nice.
I do. Can't remember.
You getting into golf?
No.
Just the hats.
I just wanted the blue hat.
Is it blue?
It is. It doesn't look it on camera, but
no, mine's black. So it looks similar to mine. Yeah, that's nice. Cool.
Next up, we've got one we've spoken about on the previous location. One that at the time, the previous kind of area cryptid thing.
Oh, I see. Sorry, yeah.
The one where, in fact, we got gaslit by Lozzie.
Oh.
Who had never heard of this alleged cryptid before. Spring-heeled Jack.
Oh, yeah. the swine. How had he never heard of that? What a load of fucking...
After you had actively done an apmapod on
Yeah.
Springfield Jack.
Yeah, literally. I'm pretty sure there's a clip as well.
There's a clip of him talking about it with you.
Yeah, he's a fucking... I'll tell you what. Lozzie is returning very soon, but fucking tell you what, Loz. Fuck's sake.
But yeah, Springfield Jack, obviously, we spoke about him in Liverpool, I think, last time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the full history because we covered that last time.
Mm-hmm.
But he obviously is a London-based cryptid primarily.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah.
Yeah. Who later in his career retired to Liverpool.
That's right.
So, yeah, primarily London-based. Obviously, as we discussed, would jump out in front of carriages, would kind of chase women around.
Lots of shenanigans.
Yeah. He was just generally a bit of a wrong'un.
Yeah.
But could jump like 10 feet or whatever it was.
And breathe blue fire.
Oh, yeah, I always forget that bit.
Yeah.
One of his more impressive features, actually.
Yeah. The jumping, blue fire breathing dick bag.
Yes.
Spring-heeled Jack. There you go.
So, after Spring-heeled Jack, another one that I want to touch on is the Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square.
Oh. What is the Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square?
Now, the Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square, I think, and this is where it gets a little bit iffy.
Right.
I think is a more of a somewhere between kind of a creepypasta-esque.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't find any kind of true basis for it.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
But I can find quite a bit. I can find varying details about certain events where the people have different names and the actions kind of went different ways depending on which article you're reading.
Okay, that's fine.
So the reason I haven't got like a full detail of it is because I can't find one that's uniform.
Yeah. Just before you jump into that, you just reminded me something that I would quite like to do an episode on, but I understand it is entirely fictional, but I do think they're cool. I would love to do an episode on SCPs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be really cool.
That would be fun.
Some of them are really fucking well written.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll maybe do one of those soon.
Yeah. So the Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square. Berkeley Square is a location in London. It's kind of a posh Mayfair district.
Oh.
Churchill lived there for a while.
Nice.
And number 50 Berkeley Square has an attic. And in that attic is a creature.
Fucking hell.
Nobody can agree on the exact description of this creature.
Right.
Sometimes it's invisible, but is very capable of physical harm.
Okay.
Sometimes it's described as a creature with tentacles and red coal eyes that has an aura of suffocating dread.
Nice. Is it a vampire?
Maybe he's moved. That's why he's not in the graveyard anymore. Other times, it's a shadowy humanoid or a twisted man-like creature.
Okay.
And finally, the other description is a shapeless mass, something described as oozing or gelatinous.
Oh. This is very Lovecraft cosmic horror, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I get. So what this creature essentially is said to be is that in the mid-1800s, a young maid reportedly entered the attic room to prepare it and was found hours later insane with terror, unable to speak, and not long after she died in an asylum.
Oh, God.
Then in the 1870s, Lord Lyttelton, who may also have been a completely different man, not Lord Lyttelton at the same time, this is where the diverging stories kind of happen,
Right.
stayed overnight in the room with a pistol and a candle. He claimed to have fired at a greyish figure that was advancing towards him. After he fired at the creature, he found no body and spent the rest of his life refusing to speak of what he saw.
Oh, wow.
The kind of alternate version of that is there's another guy who was called Lord Waterboy, I think.
Lord Waterboy.
I think it was Lord Waterboy. Hang on, let me double check. Waterboy. Anyway, some geezer was dared by his friends. He was 20 years old. He was dared by his friends who believed in this entity. He did not. To stay in there.
Okay.
So he went in with a pistol and a candle, stayed in the room. This entity allegedly attacked. Somebody that was nearby heard a gunfire, went to go check on him, and he was dead.
Oh, shit.
He was dead on the floor. Nothing physically had killed him. There was nothing actively wrong with him. He died of terror. And his face reflected that fact because his face was contorted in kind of a look of pure fear.
Bloody hell.
There was also a bullet hole in the wall, but nothing had been
shot.
Yeah, nothing had been found or hit. Thirdly, in 1887, two Navy men, sailors Edward Blunden and Robert Martin, stayed overnight in the attic while they were on shore leave. Martin awoke to find Blunden being suffocated by a shapeless entity. Martin fled, jumping out of a window, breaking both his legs.
I was going to say, jumping out of an attic.
Yeah, breaking both his legs.
Fuck.
And then obviously calling for help. And when he told police he saw a monstrous creature. When police then investigated the room, they found Blunden dead from suffocation, his face frozen in a complete state of horror.
Jesus.
So that seems to be kind of the MO of that. That's where I kind of prefer the second one for the guy with the pistol and the candle, because it matches up and makes it sound more compelling.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've added that in after the fact to make it more
potentially
interesting,
more linked. Yeah.
So Berkeley Square is considered to be one of the most haunted locations in London.
Really? Wow.
The actual house is said to have ghosts and lots of other things in it.
Never heard of this before.
I think it's a bookshop now.
Wow.
I have got a book on Haunted London over there that I think has this in it, but I can't remember what it says. There's a couple of theories as to what this is. Apparently there's the ghost of a suicide victim.
Right.
Where earlier in the late 1700s, a young man threw himself out the window of the attic after I think his wife or his girlfriend left him.
Okay.
And distraught, he kind of, he killed himself. And it's possible that his spirit is now kind of the tormented, crippled spirit there that is tormenting other people.
Right.
Another option is that it's a hidden creature. Some claiming that it's potentially a deformed relative that was kept locked away.
Right, okay, yeah.
Others that it was a more monstrous animal, like a giant squid.
Right. They just kept a giant squid in the attic. Do they not need water?
Yeah, you'd think so. Or a kind of more mutated, being of some description.
Right.
Obviously, people think it could have been a hoax or a legend, or even just a kind of campfire horror story that it got a bit out of hand and spread.
Yeah. Okay.
Others think that it might have been a psychic manifestation. And that because this place was for some reason this building's got a real reputation as being a really haunted location and being just really scary.
Okay, yes, all that emotion.
Even before this entity. People think that kind of people going in there with that negative feeling and that negative thought of, I'm going to see something, caused that to come true. Yeah. And is why it was kind of just a mass.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that one, I quite like that one.
Yeah.
And the one other one that I've got here, that also is quite interesting, is the Enfield creature.
Oh.
Different to the Enfield poltergeist.
Right.
But happening at the exact same time.
Oh.
Also in Enfield.
Okay.
Now, this is where the internet is a little bit divisive, because some people claim this was happening in Enfield, Illinois.
Okay, right.
Others claim it was Enfield, North London.
Right, yeah.
It was happening at the same time as the poltergeist, which is why I guess it gets mentioned a lot in the in the London area. But I don't know if it's kind of a overlap. But this creature was described as humanoid, but not quite right. So it had human features, but looked off.
Yeah.
It had almost grey skin, too long limbs, and its limbs were too long and its neck was too long. And it was often seen crawling or moving in a really distorted, jerky way.
Fucking hell.
And commonly seen hunched over, peering into people's windows.
Oh, my word.
It never spoke, but it did gurgle and laugh.
Oh, are you serious?
The description someone has given, and it's horrific, is think Slender Man merged with Gollum.
Oh,
which in my head is just the rape.
That's that is disgusting, is what that is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look out your window and you see that looking in, and then instead of like saying anything, it just gurgles and laughs.
Yeah,
in a kind of distorted way.
Oh man.
Yeah. So children in the neighbourhood saw it in alleyways, lurking in corners. They'd look out into their gardens and see it at the end of the garden, just kind of peering at them. It did nothing, as far as I can tell, other than just looking at people. They often called it the skinny ghost man or the crawler.
The crawler. Jesus.
I quite like the crawler.
Yeah.
One girl claimed it appeared in her bedroom and crawled along her ceiling before vanishing.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And dog walkers near Ponders End Park, which I'm going to assume is in London. That is in London. So that might prove the theory. So,
that it is in... Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, not in Illinois.
Dog walkers near Ponders End Park claim that their pets would see it near a certain path by the canal.
Wow.
And when they see it, their dogs would just growl, bark, and kind of bark at it, or freeze in complete terror and start whimpering and running away. It's unclear whether this was anything to do with the phenomena that happened in the Enfield poltergeist case. A lot of people think it might be a tulpa.
Tulpa? What's that?
A physical manifestation created by the energy and hype because of the poltergeist.
Okay.
So because everybody in the area knew there was something amiss, they willed it into existence.
Yeah, manifested it.
Kind of going back to the thing we spoke about previous with the
entity.
Yeah. It's kind of because people were so scared, they kind of made it a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And others think it might be a dark entity that was drawn to the area purely feeding off the fear of the poltergeist. So
how fascinating.
People think it could be it drew it to the area as an entity that feeds on that, which I quite like.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
Other people think it's a shared hallucination fueled by the anxiety and the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that perhaps it's just something else that people are seeing, kind of, a creature, a fox or something that is kind of disheveled.
Yeah.
Maybe with mange or something.
Mm-hmm.
That people are seeing that they're mistaking for
a bit large, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the only thing. But that is one of the theories, that the people are kind of misidentifying something.
Yeah.
Also, when it's crawling along someone's ceiling, it's a bit like...
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Not nice.
No. So that is that one. The creature was mostly reported locally. It didn't get any national coverage at the time because all the other coverage was at the poltergeist house.
Yeah, of course.
It never officially got a name and was often dismissed as imagination of children or mass hysteria.
Okay.
So people very much kind of blame it on the Enfield poltergeist. Yeah. But that is the last one I've got.
Wow.
Arguably the worst, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. That was fucking horrible, but they were absolutely amazing, mate. Thank you so much. You absolutely smashed that. Guys at home, what was your favourite out of those? Which one would you want to see least when you're next in London? Or if you live in London, has that just made you want to leave London? Let us know. But yeah, thank you, Scott, our resident cryptid expert, smashing it once again with a cryptid episode. I've been streaming recently, my work days, and yesterday I asked what people's favourite pods are, and there was quite a few different types, but one of the main ones that was coming through was the cryptid episodes. So people do enjoy these. I really enjoy these. I know you do as well, Scott. So yeah, there will be more, but we've just done London. If you would like your area to be done next, let us know what it is down in the comments. Okay. Well, that's it from us. If you'd like some behind the scenes or extra content and all the rest of it, head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/DudeRhino. And like I said, I've been streaming again, so twitch.tv/DudeRhino as well. Okay, me and Scott will be back very soon with another episode. See you later, guys. Drippity drop, drip, drop out. Bye.